Well, for the first time in American history, a United States president's actions may be considered null and void, specifically because of his cognitive capabilities. And I am talking about, obviously, Joe Biden. The good news is you guys were here on my channel. I played everything regarding his health, all the mishaps that he was having years before the mainstream media even admitted to it. In fact, they're very complicit on covering it up, but thank God channels like mine were giving you guys the truth. I've said for years that man is completely gone. Well, now there's even an investigation that has been called for. Take a look at what I'm talking about here, and I'm going to go straight to PJ Media's website here, and it's on this website, and it's titled, "Could a bombshell discovery render all of Biden's presidential actions null and void?" It goes on, "The Biden presidency might have been the greatest con job ever perpetrated on the American people. A shocking investigation by the Heritage Foundation's Oversight Project has revealed that virtually every document bearing Joe Biden's signature during his presidency was signed by an Autopen, except for one document." What was that one document? Well, what makes this revelation particularly damning is that the only document confirmed to have Biden's actual signature was his letter announcing his withdrawal from the 2024 presidential race. In other words, it sounds like whoever had the Autopen was in charge. Now, before I get into more on that, just a quick break from my sponsor. What if I told you groundbreaking studies have revealed a therapy that is so powerful that it's helping people achieve things that they thought were impossible? I'm talking about things like reversing your biological age, to melting away that stubborn body fat, to regulating your thyroid, and even, get this, achieving cancer remission. It's true. In a 413-person study, patients using this therapy were 4 times more likely to achieve complete remission from prostate cancer. So what's the secret? How about a revolutionary technology that recharges your cells' mitochondria, the very powerhouse of healing? In fact, Red Light has the most advanced systems that use dual LED technology, and it delivers these healing waves, 2 of them all at once, basically giving you double the results in just one session. Unlike costly supplements and treatments that you have to keep on buying, well, with this, it's just a one-time purchase that you and your family can use for years. Check it out by going to myredlight.com. That's myredlight, Light.com, and check it out today. Use the coupon code Lisa to get 10% off. If you want more information, click that more button or click the link in the description box below. Speaking of the Autopen, let's go directly to the Oversight Project, who has some of this information, and they happen to say the same thing I said. Whoever controlled the Autopen controlled the presidency. They said that they gathered documents, every document they could find with Biden's signature over the course of his presidency. All use the same Autopen signature, except for the announcement that the former president was dropping out of the race last year. Here is the Autopen signature. And you can see the Autopen signature, right, which is an electronic signature, putting it shortly. And then here's the signature of the letter of Joe Biden actually dropping out of the race. And you could see big difference there between that and the Autopen. One was an actual signature, the other was an Autopen. So one could suggest that, yeah, he signed out on the race, but did he really sign all the other documents? I believe the first one to use the Autopen, by the way, was Obama when he was president. But here we have Joe Biden literally using it for everything. And of course, you can see some on the pardons and clemency orders, which he pardoned murderers and rapists and the whole 9 yards. You can see that Autopen all there as well. So this is the information that has been uncovered. Now, that reminds me of a couple things that happened in the past regarding Biden's cognitive incapabilities, shall we say. One of them being Mike Johnson. And here we have Fox News, and this is just a flashback. Biden had no idea he signed natural gas export pause, Johnson said. Now, Johnson was heard saying, yeah, I was talking to, basically in a nutshell, Johnson says, I was talking to Joe Biden and I was referencing this executive order that he signed, and he did not recall signing that executive order. That's not the only thing. We also have this. This is also a flashback, Fox News. .com, and we have it here. Her testifies Biden willfully retained classified materials, but prosecutors had to consider his mental state. As you recall, Joe Biden had an investigation into his classified documents in his home, kind of like Donald Trump had an investigation in his classified documents. The difference was Joe Biden was found by her not to have the right mental state. In other words, he had massive memory hearing, and they couldn't go forward with the prosecution when the man can't even put a sentence together or recall the day of his son's death, and upon multiple other things, right? So here we have that happening, another red flag, which we all knew about. And then, of course, you have this little number here, and this is on MSN.com. White House aides hid Biden's apparent mental decline from day one of his presidency, according to an explosive report. And as you know, his in that article and other articles, it references the fact that these Biden aides were keeping Joe Biden from seeing people. Like, they're like, I think Mike Johnson came, Schumer came, and even some Democrats came. There were a bunch of people. But a lot of the times, the people who were running his cabinet were like, no, you can't see Joe Biden right now. In fact, there's this rumor on the Daily Beast, not my most favorite site, but anyway, how 6 people covered up the truth that Biden was out of it. The 6 people that they accuse of this was part of the family members. So 2 of the 6 were Biden family members, Jill Biden and Hunter Biden. And then the 4 others were top advisors. And here's the top advisors. They have Mike Delonian and Counselor Steve Ricchetti. Meanwhile, Annie Thomasalian, and I know I butchered that, and Anthony Bernal. So these are the ones that they're saying could potentially be the ones that was hiding the information from the American people. Well, if these people were fully aware of Joe Biden's cognitive decline and did not tell the American people, then they have something to be investigated for, and they have something to answer for by law. In fact, because of everything that has just come out, the Attorney General of Missouri is now calling for a straight up investigation on Joe Biden. And take a look at this. This is on his X page. This is Attorney General Andrew Bailey, and he is the Attorney General for Missouri, right? Missouri Attorney General Andrew Bailey. And he says, I am demanding the DOJ investigate whether President Biden's cognitive decline allowed unelected staff to push through radical policy without his knowing approval. If this is true, these executive orders, the pardons, and all other actions are unconstitutional and legally void. Now, I wonder if the DOJ is going to actually take this case. They may not, and I'm going to be honest with you, or they may push it under the rug in some way, shape, or form. I am not confident, even with the new people in charge. I'm not confident that we're ever going to have the real answers, although everybody already knows. We all know. Everybody knows that he was in cognitive decline. Everybody does. And we all know that he wasn't the one pulling the shots. The question is, are our government leaders going to finally admit it? And I'm still doubtful, but here's what he's calling for. And he says, Dear Mr. Horowitz, basically, he's writing to request that they conduct a full investigation into President, and I'm going to blow this up here. I write to request that you conduct a full investigation into President Biden's mental capacity in his final days in office. By now, Biden's mental decline is famous. Under the 25th Amendment, his inability to make decisions should have meant a cessation of power. Instead, it appears staffers and officers in the Biden administration may have exploited Biden's incapacity so they could issue orders without an accountable president of sound mind approving them. That would explain why the Biden administration's orders were aggressively much further to the left than any previous president. If, in fact, Biden staffers were exploiting his mental decline, those orders are null and void. The states need to know because these orders affect us. And then he gets into some of the examples that I've already shared with you in some of the other documents. But he goes on to state this as well, that, all the other reasons, people being kept out of office, all the reasons that I gave you just a minute ago about Johnson and people being kept from the office. But it goes on to say, finally, there is a streak of extraordinary far-left orders purportedly issued by Biden. Just the extraordinary orders since November include vacating the death sentences of nearly all persons sentenced to the ultimate punishment. And it goes on, granting his son Biden, Hunter Biden, a blanket pardon going back more than 10 years, despite previously promising he would not do so, and endorsing the legally frivolous theory that the Equal Rights Amendment was timely ratified. Indeed, apparently in reliance on far-left groups, Biden pardoned or commuted the sentences of 2,500 individuals whom he described as nonviolent, but he gave clemency to people like Adrian Peeler, who killed a mother and her 8-year-old child. This, plus an ocean of other far-left orders that Biden purportedly issued, but never supported before his mental decline, strongly suggest exploitation by staffers and officials who wanted to promulgate far-left policies without any accountability or dramatic legitimacy. And by the way, I want to add to that, there was also all this money that he was trying to get out the door for Green New Deal style initiatives at the last minute as well, which is now being uncovered by Doge. But it goes on to state, this is why we have the 25th Amendment, because it seems as if Joe Biden did not know what he was signing. Therefore, he asked to launch an investigation or refer his request to another investigating body to determine which of Biden's orders were knowingly issued by a competent president and which were not. And he asked the question that everybody has been asking since Joe Biden basically got into office: who has been running the actual office of presidency when Joe Biden was in charge, right? Or was he just a mere puppet for his far left radical staffers? And I really think that we need to have answers to those questions regarding the staffers. If they were really pulling the charge, they pulling the strings, I think a lot of evidence that I showed you today really screams that. The fact that people weren't allowed to see Joe Biden. They were kept away. He was kept out of the mic. He was kept from the media. Everything was cut short. He had an obvious mental decline for years in his presidency, and it continued to get worse and worse and worse to the point it wasn't hideable anymore. One has to ask, is it time to really find out what executive orders and pardons he signed and which were really him cognitively and which were not? And I think it's a fair assessment. Anyhow, I love you all. I can't wait to hear more from you. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.